Myself Dr. Megha, Assistant Professor in School of Legal Studies, K.R. Mangalam University. I welcome you all to the last session of this lecture series on law of torts and consumer protection laws. Now in this session, we will have a look into Consumer Protection Act 2019. We will discuss about the key features, few details about this act. So, first of all, we should know about what is consumer protection. So, it is a kind of practice that is safeguarding buyers of goods and services against unfair practices in the market. It refers to the steps that is adopted for the protection of consumer from corrupt and unfair practices by the sellers, manufacturers, service providers, and further to provide them remedies. As far as India is concerned, we were having Consumer Protection Act 1986, but that was replaced by Consumer Protection Act 2019. So, now the provisions related to consumer protection that tells about unfair trade practices, what is a remedy for these practices, what is the redressal mechanism is there, that all is provided under Consumer Protection Act 2019 with new features. So, Consumer Protection Act 1986, what is the basic difference between these two acts? Consumer Protection Act 1986 was having little bit old rules and regulation that was not having any law related to e-commerce. Then as far as monetary jurisdiction related to district forum and national forum and state forum, that was different from the new law. Now the new law is dealing with the e-commerce that is very much prevalent in today's time. We all are buying things from the e-portals, we all are there in the habit to purchase the things from Flipkart, Amazon. So, if these persons face any kind of fraud or any kind of defect in the goods or services, so that kind of relief was not there in the previous act, which is there through the new law. So, the objectives of this Consumer Protection Act is it protect against the marketing of product that are hazardous, it inform about the quality, potency, quantity, standard, purity and price of goods to safeguard against unfair trade practices. It establish consumer protection councils for protecting the rights and interest of the consumers. Then it assure access to an authority of goods at competitive price, and it seeks redressal against unfair trade practices. So, the Consumer Protection Act is now more towards giving consumer education, providing redressal against unfair trade practices and thereby protecting the rights of the consumer against unfair trade practices and from the marketing of such kind of products that are hazardous for the life and the property. Then move to the easing consumer access. The further objective that we can say is easing consumer access to commissions. It provides the provisions for filing complaint from residents, which was not there previously. Now they can file the complaint from residence or workplace. Then it also provides provisions for e-filing of complaint. There is an e-portal from where the persons can file their e-complaint electronically. And it also provides for video conferencing for hearing, that if any matter is there that go to the consumer council, consumer courts, then video conferencing can also be done. Then inclusion of e-commerce, as I have told you that there is a rise of e-commerce. Then one rule was framed by the government, the Consumer Protection E-commerce Rules 2020, which ensures that e-commerce companies should be registered under the Companies Act. They should appoint a resident grievance officer, that is called as RGO, and they clearly display the company's legal name, address and contact details for customer support. So these things they have to provide if they are providing goods or services through the e-portals. Then move to the definition of consumer. We are talking about the consumer protection. So first we need to know that who is a consumer. Definition of consumer is given under section 2(7) of the Consumer Protection Act, which defines him as a person who buys goods or avails services. So consumer is not only a person who is consuming the things. He is a person who buys a goods or avails a service in exchange for consideration and utilizes that good or service for personal use. And it not includes a person who is buying the goods or availing the service for resale or commercial use. So the main essence for being a consumer is that he has to buy the goods. He should be the buyer of the goods. He should avail the services for his personal use. If he is buying the goods or availing the service for resale or commercial use, then he cannot be considered as a consumer. Further, in this section, one explanation is attached which stated that the term buy any goods and hire or avail any service also include online transactions that is conducted through the online means, that is tele-shopping or multi-level marketing. Now, what are various rights that is being talked in this Consumer Protection Act? First one is right to safety, right to information, right to choice, right to be heard, right to seek redressal and right to consumer education. So, right to safety is right to protection from the marketing of hazardous goods. It's the very right of every consumer that they should be protected from any kind of hazardous thing. So, that thing should not be, the marketing of these kind of goods should not be done, and this is their right. Then right to be informed, they should be informed about the caliber, amount, potency, purity, standard and cost of product in order to safeguard that customer against any kind of deceptive business practices. Then they are having right to choose. So, it is not like that if he is asking for one thing, only one thing is shown to him and he is under obligation to buy that thing only. It refers to the right that wherever possible ensure the access to a variety of goods and services at a reasonable cost. So, from that variety he can pick and choose anything whatever he likes. Then right to be heard, that if any kind of interest is infringed of the consumer, then he should be heard in the appropriate council or appropriate agencies. Then right to seek redressal, it means right to seek redressal against any kind of malpractices, unfair trade practices, that is for the exploitation of consumer. That is also includes the right to fair settlement. And last one is right to consumer education. That means the right to acquire the proper knowledge and skill so that they can make themselves aware and other people aware that they have to be informed, they have to be refrain from any kind of malpractice which may be hazardous for their life and their health. Then the next is, what is unfair trade practice under this act? So, section 247 to clause 47 of this act deals with unfair trade practice, which includes there are certain activities which are classified as unfair trade practices. Number one is manufacturing spurious goods or providing defective services, that if the person is making any defective good or they are providing defective service that is not up to mark, that would be considered as unfair trade practice. Then not issuing cash memos or bills for the goods and services. Then refusing to take back or withdraw the goods if any defect is found in goods or services and not refunding the consideration. Then disclosing the personal information of the consumer if it is provided that consumer's personal information should not be disclosed. And it is a quite general thing that if person is buying and he is giving his number or detail, that should not be circulated among the public at large, and if the manufacturer or service provider is doing the same, then that would be considered as unfair trade practices, as it would amount to breach of privacy. Then comes product liability. Product liability is defined under section 83 of the Act, which means an action may be brought by a complainant against a product manufacturer, product service provider or product seller. So, it is not only the duty of the manufacturer that he has to make certain things in a good form, he has to provide the service that is up to mark. It is the liability of the service provider also, and also of the product seller. So, how this liability is to be decided? First of all, liability of product manufacturer. When the product contains manufacturing defect, then the liability arises. If the product is defective, if there is a deviation from manufacturing specifications, there are certain specifications. So, if I want to purchase anything from online portal, and if I am looking for the specification, and when I make an order, and when things reach to me, and when I am looking at the good, the specifications are not matching. Whatever there is there on the online portal, that is not there in the good or services, then it will be also give rise to liability of the product manufacturer. Then product does not conform to the express warranty. Warranty is there, that is providing certain things, but product is not as far as is not in consonance with the warranty that is provided by the manufacturer. Then if the product fails to contain adequate information for proper usage. Now there are certain things that requires a proper mechanism that should be provided with that product for using that product. If the manufacturer fails to provide that proper mechanism, proper information for the usage of that product, then it will give rise to liability to the manufacturer. Then liability of product service provider. Manufacturer, if there is defect, if there is no information, if specification is different, that will give rise to the liability to the manufacturer. Now, what would be the situation which give rise to the liability of product service provider? And the first one is when the service provided by them is faulty or imperfect. Second one is that there was an act of negligence on their part. Then if they fail to issue adequate instructions and warning for the services, that how to what kind of services they are providing, that may be hazardous, maybe some person is infectious, there may be some person who is allergic to those services that he is being used, he is using, and if no adequate information is given and that person got allergic and he got infected, then that would be a liability of product service provider. Then if the provider failed to conform to the express warranty or terms and condition of the contract, then these would be the situations where the liability of service provided can arise. Then liability of product seller. Manufacturer has provided the goods or services in very good condition, in the condition as specified, but if product seller has altered or modified that product which resulted in the detrimental to the consumer, then liability of product seller would be there. If they fail to exercise reasonable care in assembling, inspecting or maintaining such product, and when they exercise substantial control over the product which resulted in harm to the consumer, then these will be the situations where the liability of seller would be there. Then there are few exceptions also. We have discussed the circumstances in which liability of manufacturer, liability of product service provider, liability of product seller is there. Now, what are the defenses or what are the exceptions where they can excuse from this liability, that is given under section 87. and they state that the product was altered, modified or misused by the consumer. So, when there is a contributory negligence, or we can say when the consumer himself is at wrong, that he himself has altered or modified or misused. There is a sometimes we purchase a goods and there is a specification that you have not to break the seal of the good. If there is any defect, you have not to break the seal. You need not to be a mechanic in yourself, you have to get it checked by the company itself, but consumer thinks, okay, I can do that thing. So, if in that situation he altered or modified or misused that thing, then he cannot make the manufacturer or provider or the seller liable for the same. If that when the manufacturer has given adequate warning, as I have just stated, an instruction for the use of the product, but consumer is mishandling that product, then again it would be exception to product liability. And the manufacturer would not be liable in the case when for not warning about any danger that is commonly known to the general public. So, if the consumer is saying that warning has not been given by the manufacturer, warning has not been given by the service provider, but in that particular situation warning is not necessary. A common man, a layman should know that he has to behave like that, he has to deal with that particular thing in this particular way, then warning is not required. So, here the liability will not be there of the manufacturer. Then come to the offences and penalties that are provided under this act. First of all is punishment for false and misleading advertisement. For example, if there is an ad that we will make a person fairer in 7 days, that is a kind of misleading advertisement. So, if any person is, any manufacturer or any service provider is promoting any false and misleading advertisement, that will be an offence under this act, and that may lead to 2 years imprisonment or a fine which may extend to 10 lakh rupee. Then second one is manufacturing, selling, distributing products containing adulterants. So, if any person who is dealing or who is selling, manufacturing or distributing any kind of product that is adulterous, that is having any kind of contamination, then that would be an offence under this section. If the adulterate product does not cause any injury, now how the punishment will be specified? If the adulterate product does not cause any injury to the consumer, then imprisonment may extend to 6 months and the fine may extend to 1 lakh rupee. If that caused injury but not amounting to grievous hurt, then the punishment may extend to 1 year and the fine up to 3 lakh. If that cause injury amounting to grievous hurt, then the punishment will be aggravated, which may extend to 7 years and the fine may extend to 5 lakh rupee. And if the product results in causing death of the consumer, then imprisonment would be a period of 7 years, minimum is 7 years, which may extend to imprisonment of life and fine not less than 10 lakh rupee. So, in this situation, the punishment is classified into 4 categories. First, food is contaminated but not causing any injury. Food is contaminated but causing injury but not equivalent to grievous hurt. Food is contaminated but causing injury as equivalent to grievous hurt, and the food is contaminated, food is adulterous and that is resulting in the death of the consumer, and punishment is accordingly given. Then the third offence is punishment for manufacturing, selling and distributing spurious products, defective products. So, if it states that if any person who sells, manufactures or distributes any spurious products shall be punished for such acts. Now, we will talk about redressal mechanism. So, there is 3-tier mechanism that is provided under Consumer Protection Act at the national level, state level and district level. Let us discuss them from the district level. So, first is District Consumer Dispute Redressal Mechanism. According to section 28, This commission has the jurisdiction to entertain complaint and dispute where the value of good. Here the monetary jurisdiction is, pecuniary jurisdiction is decided, that if the value of good or services and the value of compensation claim does not exceed 1 crore, then the matter will be decided by District Consumer Redressal Commission. If they are having the same power as that of civil court while entertaining any issue that is arising out of the Consumer Protection Act, whatever offences we have discussed. So, the power of civil court they may exercise in examining the witness on oath, in receiving the evidence on affidavit, in any other matter which may be prescribed by the court itself, then demanding of the report of concerned analysis or test from the appropriate laboratory, and in discovering or producing any document or other material object as evidence in the forum. So, while doing these things, while exercising these power, it is having the same power as that of civil court. Now, what are the findings of the district commission? That is given under section 39. Findings of the district commission and the state commission and the national commission are more or less same. So, we will discuss here the finding of district commission. So, if the district commission is satisfied that the goods that is complained against suffers any kind of defect, and any of the allegation that is contained in complaint about the service or unfair trade practice is correct, then they may order the following. First one is to remove the defect that is pointed out by the appropriate laboratory from the goods in question, to replace the goods with new goods, to return to the complainant the price or the charges paid by the complainant along with the compensations, then to remove the defect in good or deficiencies in the service in question, to discontinue the unfair trade practices, and not to offer the hazardous or unsafe goods for sale. There are further remedies also. Let us repeat them again. First of all, to remove the defect in the goods, to replace the good with the new goods, to return the charges of the goods, to remove the defect in the goods or deficiency in the services, to discontinue the unfair trade practices, and not to offer the hazardous or unsafe goods for sale. Then to withdraw the hazardous goods from being offered for sale, to cease manufacture of hazardous goods, and to desist from offering services which are hazardous in nature, which are dangerous in nature. Then payment of compensation amount as compensation to the consumer if he has suffered any kind of injury by consuming those goods or services, and to pay such amount as compensation in a product liability action. Then to pay such sum as may be determined by if it is of the opinion that loss or injury has been suffered by a large number of consumers who are not identifiable conveniently, to issue corrective advertisement to neutralize the effect of misleading advertisement, to provide for adequate cost to the parties, and to seize and desist from issuing any misleading advertisement. So, again the three offences which we discussed, that if anybody is providing misleading advertisement, if they are providing adulterous food, then those will be considered as offences, and if it is found that goods are defective, service is defective, then consumer can pass an order for replacement of the goods, for the removal of the defect, for awarding of the damages, for awarding of the compensation, then awarding the adequate cost, removal of the misleading advertisement, correction in the misleading advertisement, removal of the hazardous goods from the market, and so on. Then State Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, it is at the state level, which is established by the state government, and where the value of the goods or services and the compensation that is demanded by the plaintiff exceeds rupee 1 crore but does not exceed 10 crore rupee, then state commission will entertain these kind of matters. Then complaint against unfair contracts, where the value of goods and service paid exceed 1 crore but does not exceed 10 crore rupee, and also it deals with the appeal against the order of district commission. Then next one is National Commission. Central government establishes National Commission, that is known as National Commission as per section 53. They deals with the matters in which the goods or services that is provided, the compensation that is claimed exceed 10 crore rupee. So, up to 1 crore rupee the jurisdiction is with district commission. From 1 crore to 10 crore the jurisdiction is with district commission, and from 10 crore above 10 crore cases the jurisdiction is with National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, and they are also having power to hear the appeal against the order of any state commission and also against the order of the central authority. Then it also talks about mediation, that as far as section 74 is concerned, that mediation cells shall be established by the central government at the national level and by the state government at the state level. Then it also talks about the reference to the mediation, that sometimes some cases can be referred to the mediators if Consumer Commission thinks that case is capable of settlement, and it may direct parties to give their written consent for settlement by mediation. Then section 75, it talks about the process, that if both the parties agree, the commission refer the matter to the mediation cell. If party disagree, then it will go with the general litigation, normal adjudicating process, and this basically introduces the option of mediation, that if they want to go, they can opt for the mediation. If they do not want to go, then the normal adjudication process can go on. Then what would happen after reference? That once the case is referred to the mediation, the party must appear before the mediation cell. All the proceedings will remain confidential and without prejudice, and mediator shall facilitate the settlement discussion. If the settlement is reached, then the settlement will be signed by the parties and submitted to the commission. If no settlement is there, then mediator will report the failure and commission proceed with the regular hearing of the case. So, in last, it is the duty of the mediator to disclose certain facts if there is any personal, financial or professional that results in the consumer dispute. He has to disclose that he is not having any personal relation with the parties. If he is not disclosing that, he may be biased in that situation. So, it is the duty that is cast on the mediator. Then it's all about this session that we have discussed about the Consumer Protection Act in very brief. It's a very big act. So, for this session we discussed that how the parties who is a consumer of goods or services can avail for the rights. They can ask for the compensation and relief if they face any kind of defect and deficiency in the services. So, that's all for this session from my side. Thank you so much.